froth or fluid.
Rolling down the river. Rolling down the river. Oh, wait, we gotta do a theme song.
All right, I'm cutting that off. Hey, everybody, welcome to Busted Business Bureau.
Are you gonna cut that first bit?
No, I'm not.
Not this.
Hey, everyone, welcome to Busted Business Bureau. I'm Christian Borky. If this is your first episode, good luck. If you like this podcast as much as 51 other people, you can donate to my Patreon at patreon.com/bustedbizbureau.
Okay.
When I wrote the script, it was 49, but then I got a couple new patrons.
Okay.
Did you write it in, like the different number in pen?
No, I just had it in my brain.
Shout to the twins.
Mm-hmm. This podcast is produced by the Lincoln Lodge, a nonprofit indie comedy theater in Chicago. That donation linky is thelincolnlodge.com/donation. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. This is going to be a dark episode.
Damn.
What's up?
Okay.
Why do you think you two are here?
Is that?
Yeah, is that our brand on this pod?
Oh, no.
I think it simply must be.
Nah,
if you had to
fair.
sit here and listen to 8 episodes about Monsanto and then listen to the episode about school shootings.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
I got some good reviews for that one. Shout out to Kim Florian, my homie. Said a lot of good things about that one, strangely enough. You fucking weirdo.
I know, I'm saying. And so that's why I brought you two on for this episode
Does
today.
I mean, are we like the danger duo or like
Yikes. We can come up with a brand name.
Okay. We can talk.
You could ponder through the pod.
Yeah.
My icebreaker question is, what do you think about George Bush?
See, this is a very interesting question because
You love him.
no, because I think he has endured in pop culture in a way that some presidents have not, which I think is interesting. It makes me wonder why. I think it's interesting that like his administration and like the advent of internet culture kind of intersected in a way that I think might contribute to that. Also, he's a really shitty guy.
Yeah.
I think he's just yet another example of how white men get forgiven for a lot, and their ignorance somehow comes off as charming.
Yeah. Yeah, really that.
Yeah.
Charming instead of upsetting.
Well, I think he's hot. I'm kidding.
That would be a wild
I
take
would
to
believe
have.
it with your
Imagine.
track record.
No, I do not. I just want to. Today's episode is going to be very different than a typical Busted Business Bureau episode. We're not really talking about a business per se. We're not really even talking about money in the financial sense of the word. We're talking about a product. We're talking about a resource that is exploited for financial and marketing gains. This resource is a legacy, a human legacy, the memory of Pat Tillman, who died in 2004, and whose face I saw plastered behind Damar Hamlin during this year's ESPY Awards when I was hosting bingo a few weeks ago.
So what are the ESPY Awards?
So I guess sports have like the Oscars, but for sports.
That's a really funny
What are the
way to describe
categories?
it.
Like best championship player or like best, I don't know, like goal.
Yeah.
That's not-
Or like
that's not a
LeBron
category.
won like best athlete because he's, he does a lot of charity work and he does a lot of other things in the community. He's
So
a
it's
good
like
role
not
model.
just about the sports, it's about the community and like the personalities of the people within the sports.
Yes.
Okay.
For best championship performance, I saw that there was one woman nominated, Jane Zhang, in golf.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I guess
Shouts.
she did really good in the finals. But anyways, there is an award called the Pat Tillman Service Award. And, this guy's face, we'll talk about he was in the Army. His face is, like, plastered on the back. Damar Hamlin is the NFL player on the Bills who, like, collapsed on the field during the game. His medical team or whatever came to him immediately and basically saved his life. So they won the award, and he presented it to them.
Yeah.
So I
it was emotional.
Yeah, it was deep. He
Yeah.
like cried for the first 30 seconds of the award. It was like very sad. And the Pat Tillman Service Award is supposed to be dedicated to, like folks who have good service, or sometimes it'll be like a player who was in the military or whatever. And I was watching this at bingo, and I was, like, stupefied because I'm really Pat Tillman pilled, but I guess nobody else is. And I was surprised that his legacy is still used in this way, and we'll talk about why. So I did not plan on making this episode, but I felt like I had to after I watched that. This is kind of like a
response piece
Definitely a response piece.
to the ESPYs.
Yeah, truly. And also, it was my response to finding out that the ESPYs even exist, because I did not know before I was hosting bingo.
Really?
For real, I did not know.
Oh, okay.
Do you watch every year?
I don't watch. I just know it exists. Yeah. Rappers mention it a lot in their lyrics.
Really?
They're like, I'm balling so much I should win an SB or some shit like that.
Wait, that's really good.
It's like something real on the nose.
Did you write that yourself? That was really good.
No, it's like I'm pretty sure someone said that at some point. Unless I'm the first.
Are you going to release new music soon?
I am actually.
All right, plug it now. Now's the
Weird
time.
promo.
I knew I had to jump on that. Well, before I get into this, what is the music that's coming out?
Oh yeah. It's called Black American Werewolf in South London, bro. You don't feel me? It's coming out soon.
Oh my god.
If this is sometime in August, it may already be out on streaming services, Blender Bluid, Spotify, and all that. Gang.
Swung so hard, you should get the baseball SB.
Oh god. Okay, anyway, Pat Tillman.
Pat Tillman. Oh, jeez. This is already going to get me canceled. So, the Pat Tillman biography, as it were. Nice. He was born on November 6th of 1976. The first thing you need to know about Pat Tillman is that his entire family is hysterical. They are the funniest people on earth. He's got two brothers that were accidentally born on the same day, 3 years apart. Awesome. From all the interviews I've seen, books I've read, whatever about this family, it seems like they're very progressive, emotionally regulated, they're chock full of intelligence, and they all have square-cut jaws. They're all hot.
Nice.
And I mean that genuinely. Like, they look like just all-American dudes, like hot bros. Yes, I wrote, this is the roundest about way of saying yes, they're hot. His mom is named Mary Tillman, but people call her Danny, I guess. So I'll be calling her...
What?
I'm sure she explained it in the book and I just missed it, or Anyway, she wrote a book, and I read the book. We'll talk about the book later, but she recounts a lot of pleasant memories of Pat getting in trouble at the school dance. He, did a full belly slide in and then immediately got kicked out.
Wait, that's iconic.
Oh, truly legendary, spectacular. Regarding girls, he was not much of a ladies' man, but because he spent a lot of his early life as a short kid, and he was insecure about it.
Short king.
Danny writes, quote, except for a crush he had on blonde, curly-top Stacy LaDucci in kindergarten, he was more interested in climbing trees and playing sports than in girls.
Stacy LaDucas?
Probably Landucci.
Landucci.
So funny to name her by name, just like some...
First and last, for the crime of being a kindergartner with curly hair.
That Pat liked once.
Full identity. First and last name. Government name.
And the fact that she remembers, she's got 3 kids that all probably had crushes or whatever, but she's like, I know Pat's kindergarten crush. That's Stacy Landucci.
You always remember your villain origin story.
Well, however, when Pat came home from school the first day of freshman year in 1991, he said, Mom, there's the most beautiful girl in my biology class, and her name is Marie. Ooh. And you know
sounds
what?
like West Side Story.
Oh my God, Maria.
Yeah.
So it's the name. It sounds like I'm singing. When you say it loud, it sounds like you're singing. Quiet, it sounds like it's praying.
Whoa, what?
That's the fucking song. Whatever.
Oh, no.
I just saw West Side Story a few weeks ago. All right, it was great.
Why are you from New York all of a sudden?
I just had to defend my love of West Side Story, but also the fact that I don't know any of the words. So Pat Tillman waited until he was tall enough to ask Marie out, which was senior year.
Wait, he waited 3 years?
Oh, yeah.
Is the short king stigma real?
I think so. I don't know. How do y'all don't think so? You've never met someone who's like, I don't date short dudes.
I've not dated an extraordinary amount of men, nor hung out with people who've dated an extraordinary amount of men.
Fair.
So I wouldn't know. This is more of an Amy question than it is a Christian question.
Well, then I'm the one that asked it.
Okay, look inward, Amy. Do you have a short king stigma?
Would you date someone shorter than you?
Yeah,
well, you're pretty
I'm
short.
5'4". There aren't that many people that are shorter than me.
Well, because you've excluded them from your dating apps.
Ooh, yep.
What?
You put that slide on 5'4" and above.
I think if you were 5'7", you'd have more opinions on this matter.
Yeah.
See, I'm not 5'7".
Well, we live in a society.
And then eventually, so Marie accepts Pat's bid to go out senior year.
Fucking finally.
And then...
Yeah, oh my God. He must have been doing donuts in the parking lot after leaving that news.
They got married as adults.
Yay!
Yeah!
Donuts at the wedding reception.
I mean, I'm like, I don't know what it is about like high school sweethearts back then, that seems like very sweet and charming. When I think about high school sweethearts now,
It induces you with fear.
it's so weird.
You guys didn't meet anybody else?
I know.
It's because we got apps now. Before, I just listened to a podcast
Yeah,
about
that's
this.
true.
The majority of people met people they already knew through like family, friends of friends, or school. Now the majority of people you at least go on first dates with is strangers.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why it's weird to us. But actually, it seems like it was probably more fulfilling back then because dates with strangers fucking suck.
That's true. At least you go on a first date with that person. You're like, oh, fucking teach, right?
Genuinely. Oh, science
Fucking
homework.
My lockers. Yikes. Yabba dabba doo. Yeah.
So Pat went to Arizona State starting in 1994.
Go.
Go off?
He played the role of linebacker on the football team.
Okay.
By 1998, Pat had proved himself enough on and off the field. He he won a bunch of academic awards.
Big back hottie.
He was then drafted to the Arizona Cardinals, the NFL team. Funny enough, his brother Kevin also became a minor league baseball player for Cleveland. So they both went on to do professional sports.
Wow.
Nice.
Very athletic family. From 1998 to
D1
2002.
genes.
Pardon?
D1 genes.
D1 genes, truly. And they're all like tall. They at least got to be tall. No, he got to be 5'11". Is that tall?
I
All
would
right.
say tall starts at 5'11".
Nah. I go do that. I'm a gatekeeper.
Okay, where do you think tall starts at?
It's 6 and up, G. You ain't nothing. You 5'11", you're useless.
Well, Pat was definitely not useless on the Cardinals, as from 1998 to 2002, he excelled. Off the field, actually, this is an interesting fact about him. He makes a point of not joining the prayer circles before the games, which is something that a lot of NFL players do. More than anything else, this is where I related to Pat Tillman, because I was the only, like, godless child at the Catholic school I went to.
That feeling when you're the only godless child at the Catholic school.
Like, everyone stares at you when you're all doing, like, prayer circles, and, you're just kind of standing
Yeah.
there like, I didn't ask for this. Like, when you have debates in religion class, it's
Yeah.
like you versus everybody else.
Yeah.
And, like, they're graded and assigned, and it's like, okay, I'm the only one who said that abortion should be a thing. All right, I get it.
Yeah,
Yikes.
debating with other and I say this as a Christian, but debating with other Christians is so crazy because it's like I don't believe in souls. Like, or like stuff
Right.
like that. I was like, I don't know. Everything that you're saying that's a rebuttal is like, but I don't believe that exists in the first place. You
Yeah.
weirdo.
Like, we do not live in the same reality.
Yeah.
So, okay.
It's yeah.
We're not moving farther here. So, I very much relate to Pat Tillman. He is a devout atheist, and he reads a lot of books. Pretty intellectual. Did I mention he had a 3.85 GPA in college?
Wow,
Whoa.
smart.
Could have been a 4, but he was too busy fucking.
He was too busy. He was fucking on the field and off.
Yeah.
So, anyways, he's not the quarterback, so it's not like he's like the most famous guy on the Arizona Cardinals.
Linebacker.
But did I say linebacker?
I think so.
Yeah, you did say linebacker.
So he's a big back hottie.
He was definitely a linebacker in college. I don't know if he played that on the Cardinals.
Oh,
Oh.
Yes, I very much care about accuracy.
Fair.
He is a solid kid worth a lot of money. By 2001, he's offered $3.6 million over 3 years to re-sign with the Cardinals. A lot of money,
Wow.
2001. But something else happened in 2001, 9/11.
I knew it, dude. I knew it. Bro.
Around this time, he had gotten married to Marie. He probably bought a house. His prospects were looking good. He had a career. But in interviews, he said he was growing increasingly uncomfortable living his life just entertaining for a living, because that's like really what professional sports is. Entertaining for a living, while thousands of soldiers made the ultimate sacrifice for this comfortable life.
Oh shit.
He had a lot of family in the military. His grandfather was in the military. We'll talk about it. So he's in a strange position for someone with his specific beliefs. He told a reporter, quote, "At times like this, you stop and think about just how good we have it, what kind of system we live in, and what freedoms are allowed. A lot of my family has gone and fought in wars, and I haven't really done a damn thing."
Oof. Oof.
So this pissed his mom off so much. His mom got mad. She talks at length in her book about her family's military service, which, by the way, a relative of hers served at Camp Lejeune. Does that ring up any bells to you guys? Oh my God. So brief tangent for Camp Lejeune. So as you may figure out from the story, this military thing is not going somewhere good for Pat.
No.
Camp Lejeune also, like, in recent years has been going through several, like, settlements because all of the water there was poisoned from, like, 58 to, like, 83.
Christ!
And they knew for
Like
a while.
dioxin poisoning?
It was, I don't know what kind of poison. I did not, I clicked on the Wikipedia article and I've seen, like, a bunch of the TV ads for it because I do, I, like, host bingo and trivia. Like, I see commercials now.
Yeah.
So there's like all these commercials that are like, did you serve at Camp Lejeune in the 50s through the 80s at any point?
Wow.
If so, you probably developed a weird cancer, right? You're entitled to financial compensation.
Wow.
So it's like, oh man, poor Danny Tillman has not had a lot of luck in the military. So this is where Danny Tillman's father was stationed. Was it her father or grandfather? I actually don't know. For quite some time, she spoke highly of his service. Regarding Pat's possible entry into the military, this is what she says about a, quote, unjust war. All right, quote, my sons were getting closer to draft age by then. There might come a time when the draft would be reinstated and they would be called. Because we talked so much with the boys about the honor of military service, I wanted them to understand that this was not the kind of war to get into. I did not glorify the war. The briefings to the public by Generals Norman Schwarzkopf and Colin Powell did not stress the serious nature of what was happening, and it disturbed me that the daily visuals from the war zone looked like a video game. My sons spoke of the war as cool. They had trouble understanding that people were dying. My husband and I would remind them, you're not seeing the death there.
Shout out Danny Till.
And she also, I think somewhere else says that either she or someone in her family had been protesting Vietnam. Like, she also did not agree with that war. So that's her general outlook about the war. But still, Pat and his brother Kevin enlisted anyway in May of 2002. Per the New York Times, quote, the brothers declined to be interviewed for fear that their decision would be interpreted as a publicity stunt, which is also interesting. They both participated in Operation Iraqi Freedom. I don't even have time to explain how bad that was. It was awful. In September of 2003, wherein they both started training to become Rangers, like higher level military fellows. November of 2003, they were both deployed then to Afghanistan at the same time, not too far apart. I don't know if battalion's the right word for it, but they're serving in close proximity to one another in some capacity. They're like aware of each other's existence. They write each other letters, but like also sometimes see each other. So it would only be a few months later that Pat Tillman is going to die. This is April 22nd, 2004. Here's a USA Today article describing what happened. Quote, Pat Tillman died while leading a team of Army Rangers up a remote southeastern Afghan hill to knock out enemy fire that had pinned down other American soldiers, the Army said Friday. Tillman, 27, and his team were initially not in danger from the hostile small arms and mortar fire when the April 22 ambush began. Sorry, April 22nd. I said 22. But when the rear section of their convoy became pinned down in rough terrain, Tillman ordered his team out of its vehicles, quote, to take fight to the enemy forces on higher ground. As Tillman and other soldiers neared the hill's crest, he directed his team into firing positions, the Army said. As he sprayed the enemy positions with fire from his automatic rifle, he was shot and killed. The Army said his actions helped the trapped soldiers to maneuver to safety without taking a single casualty. Heroic stuff, allegedly. His funeral celebration was a, shall we say, mixed bag. Here's the first bit we get from Sports Illustrated, which I need to take a tangent to say Sports Illustrated has done a lot of really good reporting that's made it on this podcast a lot.
Nice.
There are some really excellent reporters who work for Sports Illustrated. So here's what we got. The Army, already confused by Kevin's insistence that there should be no minister or prayers at the repatriation ceremony for Pat's body, were bewildered to learn that Pat had not wanted a military funeral or a 21-gun salute, that it was enough to just go out as a human. His widow, Marie, had those wishes on paper signed by Pat to prove it. Instead, Pat was cremated, his ashes scattered in the Pacific Ocean, and his memorial service was held at the park in San Jose, where he had stood 10 years earlier at his high school graduation. So already the Army's like just baffled that this guy does not want like a kind of service.
I'd be just as baffled.
Yeah, well, also his mom wore a bright pink linen dress to the funeral, and the rest of his family insisted on making it a celebration of life.
Let's go.
The funeral, though, was widely publicized and well attended. So they had a lot of American flag paraphernalia. That iconic photo that's just like him in his army fatigues that's like in front of an American flag, just like the portrait you get when you're a soldier. So John McCain actually came to this, and he stopped by to give some remarks. He noted how they'll all be with like Pat and God someday. Speech after speech about heaven, Pat's legacy, them all joining him with the Heavenly Father someday. So then Pat's little brother Richard, clad in a white t-shirt, sweating his ass off, beer in hand, quote, working on getting drunk, goes on stage and says this. Pat's a fucking champion and he always will be. Just make no mistake. He'd want me to say this. He's not with God. He's fucking dead. He's not he's not religious. So thanks for your thoughts, but he's fucking dead.
Hell yeah.
Oh my god, that rocks. Shades on.
Can you imagine the chutzpah to get up right after John McCain and just be
like, thank you, but no thank you.
Thanks, but my brother's fucking dead.
I don't know what the fuck that guy is talking about, but anyway.
I like literally don't know why any of you all are here. You didn't even know him.
Truly.
Yeah.
Then he goes on Bill Maher. I don't have this in the notes, but he goes on Bill Maher. I don't like Bill Maher, to be clear. And, you know, Bill Maher is like a famous atheist. If you're on Reddit in 2010, you know who Bill Maher is. And he was telling Bill Maher, he was like, I would not go to some religious person's funeral and be like, there's no God. So, like, why are you coming to mine and, like, my family's? And, like, you know, Pat has, like, wishes on paper saying he doesn't want a fucking religious thing. To be like, yeah, he's with God now and all that stuff. Like,
that's true. I also feel like Bill Maher would go to. So.
Bill Maher absolutely would do that, actually.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Dude.
But it was the brother Richard telling Bill Maher that.
Yeah.
So Bill Maher was like, I'm getting ideas.
Yeah, actually, a brainstorming session.
Yeah.
So
that is weird just because I feel like the whole, not to say, like, I don't know, I don't want to speak for Pat Tillman seems like a good guy so far. But, like, yeah, I feel like the whole thing with, like, military recruitment is they really pull on some strings that usually tie back to some kind of religious sensibility. So I feel like I'd be just as surprised that, like, this person who wasn't religious felt real strongly about joining the military, but then did not want, like, any of this cool American religious stuff at his funeral. Like, this guy's a mixed bag.
He's a real mixed bag. He's a very intellectual guy, kind of an iconoclast, as it were.
Okay.
I know. So I think this gives you a solid picture of what the public, what his family is sort of like, or like what the public perception of his family is like, at least. We're going to take a brief break for Abu Ghraib, which, So before I continue, there's a number of contextual things that we need to place Pat Tillman's death inside of. First of all, just a few days after he died, this is before it even becomes news, in April of 2004, there's a harrowing report on 60 Minutes and like every major news station about the atrocities that were happening in Abu Ghraib. I think I've mentioned it literally to you two before on the podcast.
Yes.
For context, I'll keep this as respectful and not horrible as possible. Abu Ghraib was supposed to be a prison where U.S. soldiers, in conjunction with the CIA, were getting information from Iraqi prisoners about the war and, I don't know, intel, shit like that. I don't know how to say any of this I don't know how to say any of this myself without getting mad, so I'll just read literally the first sentence of Wikipedia about it to you. And for those listeners who may not know, quote, during the early stages of the Iraq War, members of the United States Army and the CIA committed a series of human rights violations and war crimes against detainees in Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, including physical abuse, sexual humiliation, both physical and psychological torture, rape, as well as the killing of it was this guy, Manadel al-Jamedi, and the desecration of his body. And also, I don't know if you have ever seen photographs of some of the stuff that they would do, but there would be people mid-torture, just the worst stuff you can imagine, typically naked, and then just a cute army lady in her fatigues just like smiling with a thumbs up in front of them. There's like 4 different pictures like that. It's disgusting. And all of these are airing on TV right around when Pat Tillman's dead. So when Pat Tillman's death lands at the feet of several high-ranking army officials, it was described as, quote, a steak dinner, albeit on a garbage cover platter.
Holy shit.
Because now you've got this heroic, hot NFL football boy who died
PR.
so heroically, charging up a hill, ready to shoot some, like, you know, enemies in the territory. So when you've got this horrible human rights abuse going on, you've also got this story to counterbalance it, to play into people's idea of, like, America and freedom and all that stuff. So I'm going to get to a point here. I promise it's taking so long for a reason.
It took 2 seconds. You're fine.
But not even Abu Ghraib stuff. Like, this is all getting to a point. There's a twist that's coming.
Shit. Okay.
So I wanted to set this up.
Spoiling your own podcast mid-podcast.
Well, actually, it's in the next sentence. The story I just told you about Pat Tillman is not true.
Holy fucking shit! Whoa!
That is at least his final months. The family was none the wiser for weeks until Danny Tillman received this phone call from a reporter in Arizona. And then she describes it in her book. Hi, this is, Mary Tillman. You left a message for me to call you. Quote, yes, Mrs. Tillman. The voice sounds uncomfortable. I'm sorry to bother you, but what do you and your family think about the news the Army has just given you? What news? I ask, overcome with feelings of dread. You mean the Army hasn't told you? Told me what? What are you talking about? I ask, trying to contain my panic. What do you have to say about the fact that Pat may have been killed by friendly fire? So this is from her book, Boots on the Ground by Dusk, My Tribute to Pat Tillman. And I'm actually going to leave you two with that. I'm going to go on a brief tangent, then come back to Pat Tillman's death, all right?
Wow. To be continued.
To be continued. We're going to run through a fuck ton of history about the NFL and the military. Are we ready?
Yes.
I am ready.
This is kind of the only business part of the podcast, and it's barely businessy.
Colin Kaepernick. That's what to say.
Literally, that's where it's all building up to. So,
Play ball.
The military's been intertwined with Major League Sports for as long as Major League Sports have existed and paying players for it. The national anthem was officially made the national anthem in 1931. Star Spangled Banner was written like a bunch of years earlier, which is so funny that there were other songs that had to have been considered for the national anthem.
Imagine.
Literally Imagine by John Lennon. And by 1945, the national anthem had been played before like every major sports thing because these men are entertainers and they wanted to like honor the service that was going on overseas. 1945, World War II.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, make sure that the sacrifice isn't for nothing. We're going to remember the soldiers. So
Oppenheimer.
It's literally Oppenheimer. Since the beginning, sports and the military have like been intertwined in at first an honorable way, I guess you could call it. It wasn't actually required for NFL players to be present during the national anthem until 2009. Did you guys know that?
No.
I did. Because of the Colin Kaepernick.
Because of the Colin Kaepernick thing. Oh shit, my page 6 is stuck to my page 5. There we go.
Classic.
October of 1968, two black athletes, Tommy Smith and John Carlos, were awarded gold and bronze for the 200-meter dash in the Olympics. During the medal ceremony, when Star Spangled Banner was playing, they both bowed their heads and raised their fists to emphasize the ongoing need for equality and human rights justice. That's exactly right. That same year, during the same season, I can't tell if it was before or after. I think it was after. The wokest, whitest NFL player of all time, Dave McGessie, heard the Star Spangled Banner blasting over the speakers during a game, and he decided to protest as well. Quote, McGessie shuffled around while the anthem played. He spat, he held his helmet down casually, he glowered, his body language spelled out agitation, resentment, contempt. Quote, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do that day. I really just made it up as I went along.
Oh my God.
So this causes, this is a huge deal, not only an NFL player is doing this, but a white NFL player is protesting the national anthem in 1968. It is directly within the context of the Olympics and Dave McGessie that the then Super Bowl commissioner and noted asshole Pete Rozelle starts sending NFL players on goodwill tours of Vietnam.
Oh,
there's a Chicago Bears player named Dick Butkus.
hell yeah.
He's one of the guys, apparently he's really beloved, he's all around Soldier Field. Dick Butkus went on a goodwill tour. Anyways, this really marks the beginning of patriotism as a bona fide NFL marketing strategy, more than anything else. Yes, it's about respect and honoring our service members, but at this point, it is also the brand of the NFL to be pretty patriotic, military adjacent, as it were. Throughout the years, many NFL executives and administrative officials have made this direct connection. It's hard to also not just notice it with your eyes.
Yeah.
The theme is already so militaristic if you think about the music that plays before the broadcast. It's all horns and
It's
horns.
part of the branding.
Yeah.
Also, in 1981, there were a bunch of hostages in Iran from a U.S. embassy that had just gotten let out. At the Super Bowl, and the symbol for respecting and wanting the hostages to come home, I guess, was a yellow ribbon. I don't remember why. But then they put this giant fucking yellow ribbon on the side of the Super Bowl dome, during the Super Bowl. It's just been shit like that, big theatrical gestures that signal the NFL's connection to the military. So, it got to a point where John McCain and Republican Jeff Flake released a joint report together detailing how many times the Department of Defense has in fact paid the NFL for demonstrations like this.
Whoa.
Swearing-in ceremonies, soldiers coming home ceremonies, flag unfurling, recruiting booths, etc. Actually, I'll let them talk about it. Quote, the report details to the greatest extent possible the DoD's inappropriate and frivolous spending on paid patriotism activities, as well as the gifts, tickets, and other perks in each professional sport team contract we identified. Where possible, we identified how much the particular item cost taxpayers. We're shining a bright light on all this waste and abuse of taxpayer funds to ensure this practice is stopped once and for all, so the taxpayer dollars allocated for national defense are actually spent on our brave men and women in uniform who are selflessly serving their country, not boondoggles.
Can I just say, your
boondoggles.
diction is immaculate.
Thank you.
Watching you read that, I was like, wow, enunciation alert.
I thought you guys were going to talk about the word boondoggles because that's mostly why I put the quote in.
No, that is a hilarious word.
Like John McCain's ass was like, I got this cooking. We're not spending our money on boondoggles, I'll tell you that much.
It was probably in there like 5 more times, and then, they had to be like, well, okay, you can have one at the end.
You can have one boondoggle as a treat.
Because he wrote this whole report by yourself.
Wait, is boondoggles and boondocks of the same family?
Do you doggle on a boondock to be a boondoggle?
Sometimes, yeah, boondocks to boondoggle, you know what I mean?
How many boondoggles does it take to boondoggle? Sorry. She booned on my dog. Sorry.
Don't apologize, Queen. Don't you apologize.
She doggle on my boon till I duck.
Yikes! Never be rappers. I'm begging you.
Boon on my dog till I SB.
I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this.
Boon on my
For the
dog
record.
till I SP.
Someone kill me, please. Now.
She Georgian on my boon till
It's the
I...
worst day of my life.
You started this by telling us that rappers mentioned
I'm sorry. What am I supposed to do?
We're actually killing
Erase my
Blender.
own history, please.
We need a count or like a fan cam of how many times Blender Bluid has choked on their own spit during this podcast.
Someone make it the super cut.
Okay, so we do have a monetary connection between the NFL and the military.
So what I'm hearing is that people from the military would have a contract with each specific team,
Yep.
and then in exchange for so
it is a. I'm sorry, may I interrupt?
yes.
It is a recruitment strategy. They pay, the NFL Buffalo Bills, let's say, to set up booths and to have a flag unfurling ceremony to get more people to join the military.
And then does that mean that the military also paid the NFL to have like those fan cams of like veteran night or
In some cases, yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It can get pretty damn silly. The report is silly. I can tell you that much.
And then in the meantime, the people from the Department of Defense and people from the military are like partying in the suites as like a perk.
And then,
Literally,
and then if you're in Indiana, you see the military show up at your high school and ask people to do 20 push-ups. Like, you could be a warrior.
Is that what
They really would do that. It was always so silly.
Did you ever do push-ups?
Never. I was like, this is so stupid. So dumb.
I used to work out with the ROTC kids at DePaul.
I remember this.
Monday,
I remember
Wednesday,
this phase
Fridays
at like 5 a.m.
Yeah,
God
I
damn.
because I wanted a summer bod, and they offered it as a class at DePaul. So I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll work out with like the military kids." I had so much. Okay, first of all, they're all also civilians. Like we were all civilians, but I had kind of a stolen valor moment because like we were all jogging in Oz Park, and these two kids were like, "Thank you,"
Oh, no.
and I was like, "Yeah, you're welcome for my service."
What were you serving?
I was serving.
Hey.
I got those kids in trouble so often because, like, they were all just so serious and like they had to police each other because they wanted to like get ready for the military. So if I made any of them laugh, they got in trouble, which was all the time. I should hit some of them up. I still
This
have their
feels
numbers.
like a movie. It was our friend Christian. It's like Christian's not actually in ROTC. Yeah. What?
People deadass thought I was in the military for a while.
I mean, yeah, because who else is gonna think that it's a good idea to work out with the freaking ROTC kids?
I thought it was an excellent idea because I was like, you know who's in shape? Those folks in the
That's
military.
true. Fucking gunned up.
You did get so ridiculously shredded that
I
summer.
did. It was a problem. let's talk about what really happened to Pat Tillman.
Okay.
As Danny Tillman had described before, she found out via a phone call from a reporter, not from her son, not from the Army, not from anyone involved, that Pat may have been killed by friendly fire.
And how did this information come out?
So, we'll talk about it. It's
Okay.
not great to be killed in friendly fire, but a lot of people do die that way in the Army. There's a lot of miscommunications. It's
real.
a lot of like panic going on. It is a thing that does happen. I wouldn't be making this episode if it was just that.
Yeah.
So, while tragic, it's relatively standard. The thing is, the Army begins giving the family contradictory claims of how Pat died.
What?
He was lying prone, but he was shot in the chest. It was daylight, but it was hard to see him. He was shot randomly from 250 yards away. Just kidding, it was actually 100. No, just kidding again, it was definitely 250. No, it was 33. No, it was 250. His mom's book details the entire Kafka-esque journey of having to find what information is really correct. Actually, here's one of my favorite quotes in the book. She talks about digging through a 2,000-page report while she's on a plane with her brother Mike. Quote, one of the flight attendants handed us a pack of pretzels, and the other serves our drinks. I stick the pretzels in my purse, and then I pour the vodka and Bloody Mary mix into the plastic cup. Mike and I sip our drinks quietly. When we finish, we each take our copies of the report. I have Mike read Sawyer's statement and blah, blah, blah. She's talking about having a fucking Bloody Mary while she's reading the reports
Hell
of her
yeah,
son's
DT.
death on a plane. She slays.
I like her.
One thing about her, she rules.
She rocks. She's got moxie.
Listen, those tiny little bags of pretzels on planes hit different.
They hit different when
They're
you're
so
thousands
good.
of feet up in the air.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It's something about the salt.
Something about getting drunk in the air. Yum. Now, me personally, I do it at the airport so I can already be drunk on the plane.
Wow. You
Right.
sound poor.
Just me? I sound poor.
Do some rich people shit like I do.
Well, what do you do?
An edible,
I
obviously.
steal wages.
Wages. I wish I didn't interrupt because that was really funny.
Sorry.
So it's iconic, spectacular. She's having a bloody and like going through heavily redacted reports of like her son's death.
And it's like actually for real on paper, right?
Yeah.
And
Imagine
it's
sitting
like,
next to her on the plane.
that's a full carry-on. That's a full carry-on worth of just paper.
Yeah.
And most of it is just blacked out.
Yeah, and someone's like, God, that's a weird fucking book she's reading.
I'm imagining her with just like a you could play bowling with all the tiny little bottles that she has lined up on her table. by the end of
This
play,
lady
she's
is working.
flicking balls of paper.
And I like to think she and her brother had like aisle and window seat and someone was in the middle like,
Yeah.
should I be reading too?
Being passed. Yeah.
Is the marshal.
So, usually, so this is also a glaring fact that the Army only tells her later. Usually in the event of a soldier's death, their clothes and personal belongings are kept for an investigation before usually being like cleaned and sent home. The Tillmans never received Pat's stuff. Why? They burned it the day after he died.
Sketch.
What also emerges, and sorry again that I've waited so long to get to this point, the Army had Pat psychiatrically examined over and over and over and over and over again, like more than the other soldiers.
What?
There are tons of pages calling him insubordinate, hard to get along with, a free thinker as it were. What his brother also reveals is that shortly before he died, Pat Tillman had grown disillusioned with their work in Afghanistan. Several sources cite that he'd written and said that the war they were participating in was fucking illegal. Quote, fucking illegal.
Oh, hell yeah.
So the Associated Press says in 2007, quote, and that they had like read the 2,000-page report that Mary was reading. The medical evidence did not match up with the death as the scenario is described. A doctor who examined Tillman's body after he was killed on the battlefield in Afghanistan told investigators, quote, Army medical examiners were suspicious about the close proximity of 3 bullet holes in Pat Tillman's forehead and tried without success to get the authorities to investigate whether the former NFL player's death amounted to a crime. The doctors, whose names were blacked out, said that the bullet holes were so close together that it appeared he was cut down by an M16 fired from a mere 10 or so yards away.
Whoa.
Which is the length of a school bus.
Wow.
So not only, so we have to recap here.
Yeah.
He did not die charging up a hill under enemy fire. He died from friendly fire 10 yards away straight into his forehead after calling the war fucking illegal and making informal plans to meet up with Noam Chomsky.
Interesting. Okay, now my confusion makes sense. Yeah, he was not about this shit.
So we've got this incredibly famous intellectual, if iconoclastic, young man who is not afraid to speak his mind. It's been, again, hazily reported that he planned or was reading Noam Chomsky, like he planned to meet with or was reading Noam Chomsky in the days before he died. He's only got roughly a year at best in his military service before he goes back to the U.S., and that is how he died. His brother Kevin, along with members of his family, have sincerely and publicly wondered if Pat was murdered. So circling back, with this knowledge in mind, I want to once again ask, do we think it's appropriate for the ESPYs or the NFL to continue using Pat Tillman's service photo in all of these displays? Do we think it's appropriate to have him sitting there in his Army uniform, sitting in front of the flag every year to hand out the award? Or literally at this Super Bowl last year, folks from the Pat Tillman Foundation did the fucking coin toss, and Kevin Costner narrated a video talking about how Pat Tillman died in action, and omitted the rest of the details about how Pat Tillman died. Do we think it's appropriate to put this man's face on a bunch of shit and invoke a sense of pride in the military, which continue to fight illegally and unjustly around the globe in order to continue a decades-long marketing aesthetic of a fucking sports league? Is that busted enough for you?
That's busted. I can't believe that. That's crazy.
And everyone I talk to about Pat Tillman, I'm apparently the only fucking person who's Pat Tillman pilled, because everyone I say, like, oh, do you know Pat Tillman? They're like, either they know about the award or they're like, I have no fucking clue who that is.
Yeah.
So, before I continue, thoughts?
I always knew, like, because of the Colin Kaepernick stuff, I always knew, like, the military NFL thing was always fake and fraudulent and started a lot more recently than people realize. I did not know it was this despicable.
Yeah.
That's
oh
so
my
messed
God.
Up.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. So when I described the beginning of, like, this is a resource they continue to tap, it is, like, his image. It's his story. It's this thing that was first reported in USA Today of how he died charging up a hill. And when, in fact, it's close to confirmed that his last words were, "You're shooting at me, I'm friendly, I'm Pat fucking Tillman."
Yeah.
Like,
that's nuts.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And, like, the fact that, like, the military just, even to his family, didn't, like, tell them anything because it just better served their interest to keep their mouths shut.
And not only did they not tell the family, they continued to, like, cover up several details about everything. Like, it took them years of petitioning Congress and doing everything right for any of this to come out. And I put heavy air quotes around the word right. Because they don't talk to the media. They don't do, like, press tours. They, like, don't quote unquote capitalize on his death or whatever. Like, if they did, I would not be judging, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they go through all the quote-unquote proper channels and they still get deceived, blackballed, whatever. It's just nightmarish. And then they continue to be brave enough, the NFL, to use that fucking picture of him.
That's crazy.
And it's just so brazen.
And listen, like, I'm not the only one saying this. While the Tillmans, again, generally don't answer any requests for interviews or whatever, they still have written their own content, like Mary Tillman's book. Kevin Tillman wrote a 600-word essay on Truth Dig in, like, 2006. This is what he wrote, quote, "Somehow, the more soldiers die, the more legitimate the illegal invasion becomes. Somehow, those afraid to fight an illegal invasion decades ago are allowed to send soldiers to die for an illegal invasion they started. Somehow, American leadership, whose only credit is lying to its people and illegally invading a nation, has been allowed to steal the courage, virtue, and honor of its soldiers on the ground. Don't be shocked when our grandkids bury much of this generation as traitors to the nation, to the world, and to humanity."
Yeesh. That's crazy.
Yeah, he was spitting there.
Yeah.
Wild.
That's wild.
And I think I kind of know, in part, who he's talking about. I mean, like, the essay was titled after his brother.
Right.
You know,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's pretty clear who's talking about.
Yeah.
It's also wild to me that they can do this. I could not understand, but, like, I could get how they could get away with this if it was, like, a smaller, like, not famous person.
Can I tell you a story?
Yes, you can. I love stories.
Part of Pat Tillman, this is not even in the script, this is just from my brain. Part of Pat Tillman's service, like, one of the main things that he and his team did there is that there was this woman who was at some point taken hostage by Iraqi soldiers. His team was part of the charge of like getting her back. Now, it's unclear how much like there were some folks on the other side who like helped her get back, whatever. Her name was like, I think Stacey Lynch. And that story then got turned into Stacey Lynch, what a hero. She kicked ass on her way out. Like, she got herself free and ran into Pat Tillman's arms. Like, you know, like just some shit like that. So she joins the family at like a 2007 congressional hearing and was like, you guys also did this to me? And like,
Oh, shit.
I don't know why you guys are turning me into a hero. I did fucking nothing. You know, like I got captured and I got released. That's all this that happened. But she was also some rando who got turned into this like American icon for just serving.
Yeah, that's nuts.
So it does happen to like lesser knowns. And imagine how many more people that happens to, you know?
Right? Oh, man.
Here's a tweet that's retweeted by a former sitting president of the United States to then 39 million followers. Quote, NFL player Pat Tillman joined the U.S. Army in 2002. He was killed in action in 2004. He fought for our country and freedom. Hashtag stand for our anthem. Hashtag boycott NFL. So this is how we get back to Colin Kaepernick.
CK.
Because not only are we now using his image at the awards, we're using him like behind the Super Bowl or whatever, we are now using him to disparage players who are fighting for freedom or who are standing up for equality or whatever because they're fucking kneeling during the anthem. You know, like now his legacy is being invoked to attack.
See, this is why I'm like, look, I don't know if I believe a hell exists, but if it does, I want them niggas to be there.
Yeah.
Fuck these people. Christ, this is evil.
So that's how we get to Colin Kaepernick in this story.
Shout out to CK.
I wish I could link the actual tweet in the sources, but Twitter doesn't work right now. You can't link any old tweets.
Oh my gosh,
Maybe
they're
it'll be
clearing out the
fixed.
cache.
You mean fucking X, my dude?
I literally wrote that in the script and I was like, I don't know if you guys get it.
We don't want to give it the time of day.
So usually I insert my own opinions here, but there's this good article from The Intercept that's directly responding to this tweet that says, quote, "There's an irony in suggesting Tillman's legacy is somehow desecrated by protests that take place during the national anthem because those protests are said to insult the military, when it was the same military, the NFL's longtime ally, that did so much actual damage to Tillman's legacy after his death." Which I feel like is better than I could have said it.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, I don't know. I don't have like the facts to back this up. But I remember when that stuff was going on, I was like, this has to be planted. Because there's no tie-in from not kneeling to the military. Like that whole somehow not kneeling during the national anthem is disrespectful to soldiers. Like, how did your brain get to that point? Someone had to be paid off to like say that. And then people just followed it because people want to have reasons to hate black people. But that's a story for another time.
I mean, there's like part of, I read fucking U.S. code for this, and it is written in the U.S. code or whatever that like people have to stand, like face the flag during the national anthem, but I don't think it says the word stand. This is also like a big deal when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling because they were like, oh, he's breaking U.S. code. Oh, but actually when you read it, he's not. He's still there. He's still facing the flag. He's just kneeling.
Yeah, and that was recent. That was like a lot of people, I forget what year it was, but like being outside during the anthem was new. Oh. That wasn't like actually like happening for like decades and decades. That was like probably like 10 or so years in that they made that a rule. But it wasn't like a thing that was always happening. A lot of players are in the locker room during that point and they would come out or some shit like that.
Yeah, they used to just be in the locker room, and then in 2009 they were like, okay, well, you guys have to be on the field now.
Yeah. Show support for America.
And now the second someone kneels, you hear just overwhelming boos. Like during the national anthem, which I feel like you also shouldn't do, is like loudly boo. I feel like that's been really not talked about. Imagine though, like, you're the singer and you have no idea people are kneeling, so you just start, you're like, oh, say, can you see?
It's Fergie, so you really don't know.
You can really go either way. So, dare I say, we're heading towards the conclusion. We're barreling towards it.
No.
I went back and forth on whether I wanted to do this episode because it was like a last minute thing. I hate to use the hazy details of someone's death as content for a podcast, famously. That is until I read this quote that Pat Tillman's mother gave Sports Illustrated.
It's going to be heartbreaking. DT.
You try to picture, how did my child die? And it keeps changing. It's like Pat has died 7 times in my head. You think you're losing your mind for months. They attached themselves to his virtue and then they threw him under the bus. They had no regard for him as a person. He'd hate to be used for a lie. I don't care if they put a bullet through my head in the middle of the night. I'm not stopping.
Oh my
DT!
My girl!
Let's
This
go!
whole family.
She's different. She built different.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a family that wants a fuller picture of Pat Tillman's legacy, like, presented to the public. They don't want it to be, like, it just uses this jingoistic icon, you know? So while his image may be revered by, like, you know, sycophants who love Donald Trump and the national anthem, like, oh, I don't care if they put a bullet in my head in the middle of the night. That's crazy. Like,
Bars.
literally bars. She is a talented speaker and a talented writer. So, also, like, the NFL takes money from the military. I pay my fucking taxes so that the NFL can put up an image of this guy while some soldier is, like, reunited with his dog during a Browns game. It sucks. I hate it.
It's so stupid.
It's busted.
It's silly.
Yeah. So, fuck it. That's the episode. How you guys
Here are
feeling?
my sources.
Yeah. Actually, I threw them away.
Wow.
Why do you throw your sources away?
I did. It's
I think she knew
I
I
made
was
it up.
gonna. I was gonna pretend they weren't real.
I know. I wasn't ready for the joke. Source, I made it up. So, what do you guys think?
Man. I don't know. So I just got done watching this movie called They Cloned Tyrone.
They cloned Tyrone.
They
Okay.
Cloned Tyrone, which I do think is one of the greatest movie titles of all time.
Yeah.
But it's just like stuff where it's like this conspiracy theories explaining stuff that has to do with like black people in poverty. And I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. I always tell myself like some conspiracy theories. I'm like, you gotta remember, some people are just dumb. So dumb things happen in the world.
Yeah.
But this is one of those things where it's like, you know, you look like the war on drugs being a literal thing that was proven true. People still don't believe it. I feel like this is another one of those things where it's like, it sounds like a crazy conspiracy. It is true.
Yeah.
Just like people, military in America and all these people, they manipulate stuff.
It's
for
one Google
evil.
search away.
Yeah. It's nuts.
It is nuts. I think like the thing that stands out to me about it the most is the fact that like even though the information is one Google search away, the military it's still working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I bet you with a different family, they would have just went along with it. Because they were probably, as the kids might say, military pilled. I don't know. I don't know how it works.
And it's also like this family is military pilled. Like her family served in the military and she's still like, fuck this. Oh God. It's pretty awful.
That's nuts, though.
Yeah. And now you guys are Pat Tillman pilled like me.
PT.
PT.
That's my guy.
Drink it down. I think like I don't know. It makes me wonder. It's so insidious that the way that like the combination of the military, media, sports industry works is that it's like an aspirational thing until you actually get into it, and then by that time it's like already too late.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, like it just makes me wonder if Pat Tillman had been allowed to go home the second that he was like, I don't want to do this anymore, then you know, things might be different.
He and his brother like talked extensively about how they knew they were robbing themselves of a voice the second they got into the military.
Right.
And they were like, that's a risk we're just going to take. Like, we have no voice for 3 years, and the second we come back, we will have a voice. And I think that is what was so threatening to everybody.
Yeah, is like that awareness of like what you are giving up for that time and then what you're going to do with that power later.
Yeah. Do you think this will have any ramifications if we ever need to go into like an actual war?
No.
You don't think so?
No. No, I think we'll do exactly. We spend like $800 billion a year on the military. No, I don't think the story of like one guy is gonna change.
You don't think there's like a limit on how many like black and brown teenagers they can fool into getting into this?
No. I honestly have considered starting a separate podcast that's this, but just military contractors.
Yeah.
That's like the Busted Business Bureau. I would probably call it like 800 billion or
I'd
something.
listen to it.
But it's like it's just so complicated, and it's complicated to explain to people in a way that they'll believe, and you don't sound insane of like student loans are somehow connected to military recruitment,
1000%, yeah.
Yeah.
And so because it is complicated and difficult to understand, like, you can't put it into a flashy BuzzFeed piece. And so it is hard to, like, change people's minds on that.
Right.
Oh, if they weren't paying for free college, like, gazillions of black and brown teenagers would not be.
That's what half the
joining
fucking kids in ROTC told me. They were like,
Yeah.
I'm here for the free college.
100%.
You don't understand the red string conspiracy board until someone walks you through each one.
And the crazy thing is, like, it's like one string.
Yeah.
It's like it's,
One long
it's not
string.
even like a huge wall.
Yeah. It's like, people make money.
Yeah,
Any questions? So,
that's crazy, yo.
yeah, okay. Well, if I start that podcast, I'll be sure to have you guys on as just like permanent guests.
Oh shit!
It'll
Let's do
just
it.
be us in the military.
Military gang.
Yeah. I think people would love it. Maybe it'll be a spinoff.
Can I ask y'all a question?
Yeah.
How do y'all feel? Because I feel like we're all pretty like critical of the military and how like it works to like essentially take advantage of people in poverty for the most part.
Yeah.
Just so it can then make money and blah 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 blah. How do y'all feel about that? And then like making sure you also like respect that people will die out there and stuff. Sometimes I feel bad because I'm like, I do want people to know I do respect and like honor anyone who like has died serving.
Yeah.
But I also know the system is bullshit.
Yeah. I don't blame a cog in the machine. I blame the inventor of the machine.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anybody can be blamed for the choices that they make when under duress and like 17 and like don't know better and have never been exposed to like, like, I don't know, thinking about what you're gonna eat for dinner every night, not thinking about the power and history behind the American military-industrial complex, like nice father figure dude, if you don't have one, shows up, tells you if you do good push-ups, everybody will love you. Like, I think there is a way to be critical of both. I do agree that the aim of, I think, the industry as a whole is to make it so that's really hard.
Yeah.
I also think, though, on the other side, like, yes, there's clueless 17-year-olds. There's also fucking psychos who go do an Abu Ghraib.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they will also die in service. And I still will hold the fact that I don't think anybody should be there in the first place.
Yeah.
They went, they did it, like, God bless them, I guess. But, yeah, I don't think anyone should be doing it. But also, okay, so here's the thing that I didn't mention on the podcast. Pat Tillman's widow, Marie, her name's Marie, not Mary, created the Pat Tillman Foundation, which helps veterans, like, get networking, job opportunities, school stuff. And it is the foundation that the NFL, like, contracted to come do, not contracted, like, asked to come do the coin toss.
Yeah.
So they are part of this machine. Like, ultimately, and also, like, on the website, they don't mention how he died. And it's like, I can't blame her for wanting better opportunities for veterans and like wanting to take care of a population that is underserved and like overexploited. Yeah. But like also it is part of the machine. That's why I didn't want to mention it on the podcast because it's like, I'm not going to come down on her for that.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I don't know. It's really challenging when you as an individual or as a family are trying to fight against something that's so big and then also try to not get taken out. Like, because if they won't, if they might not put a bullet through your forehead while you're sleeping, but they can make you deeply unpopular and extremely just kind of like, pariahs.
And I can also imagine maybe this is her way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
And I heard this really good advice from someone I follow named Crystal West of The Read. We was talking about like black billionaires and black people in capitalism, and she was just saying like, look, billionaires shouldn't exist, capitalism is bad, but black people are the last people I'm going to criticize for trying to get money. And I apply that to a lot of different things where it's like, all this shit is bad. The last person on the list of people who I'm going to criticize in this kind of situation is the person who lost her husband. Like, if her way of dealing with it is this, then maybe just let her have that piece and we'll get to the other stuff first.
There's bigger fish to fry here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, well, you asked the question. What do you think about it? The initial question that you asked me, Amy.
I don't know. It's tough. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, same thing. It's like I see, like, I've seen it. And I had a friend, his name is, I shouldn't say his name. But I had a friend, and I remember that he wasn't like, he didn't come from like a wealthy family, but he joined the Army. I remember we and him were talking about it. He was saying like, I just want to like, I want something that will help me grow up. And like, I was like, I didn't really know what to say at the time, but it's always made me sad that his way of growing up was this. Like, that was the only way he felt like he could like get his life in order financially, become like what he would maybe consider a more mature adult man.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hate that, like, that is the thing that only felt like your option. And that kind of stuff is by design. Why are they in high schools telling you to do push-ups?
Yeah.
Why is it in, like, football, this sport that you watch? It's all by design.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know, it sucks. And I'm like, I had a friend who did it, and, he, like, he got his student loans paid for and stuff, but I'll never know what he really went through or like how that's affected him as a person. And I know a lot of people, it sucks. And it wasn't even until the Obama era that even like healthcare for veterans became even like manageably good. Not to say that Obama's great, but just say like that's how recent even taking care of veterans was. And it's still bad. I work in the nonprofit space, and a ton of people are veterans, and they still have things hard, and we still don't have ways to address the mental health and stuff that they go through. So I don't know. I support anyone who's gone through it. I'm sure you did it for like valid reasons, but the whole system is messed up, and I wish there were ways to wake people up and not make things so this is your only path towards financial stability.
Yeah. That was a really good answer.
Gang, commit crime.
I love capitalism. Well, thank you for your thoughtful and honest answers, y'all.
Of course.
I look forward to our military podcast that we're going to start together.
Salute your shorts.
Yeah, I think the theme song will just be taps.
Yeah. You'll give us something else to scat over.
Yes.
All right, well, anything to plug before we fuck off?
When is this coming out?
It may be tomorrow or maybe Monday. I don't know.
Okay, cool. I hope you have a nice day.
Hey. Supervillain Talk Radio, my YouTube channel that's been on off and on for like 2 years.
Hell yeah.
We up to 98 subscribers, baby.
Let's get
it
to
100. Get me to 100, cuz. Come on, let's get crazy.
Get it to 100.
And I got music coming out, Blender Bluid on Spotify. Holla at you.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's been Busted Business Bureau. I'm Christian Borky. That's Amy Doe. That's Blender Bluid.
Hey.
All right, thanks. See you later.
Bye.
Wow.